If you just learned about the Grand Archive trading card game and you're looking for some tips, this is the video for you. What's up everyone, it's Dan with Main Deck, and I'm back again with another Grand Archive video for you guys. No, the game's not out yet, but it's coming later this year, and something that is happening right now is that Weebs of the Shore is going around the country to a bunch of different conventions and showing the game off, and maybe you found the game at a convention and then you came and found me, and if so, hey, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. Here at Main Deck, we cover all sorts of trading card games, including some that aren't even out yet. So Grand Archive is one that we're personally just very excited about here. And I thought what I would do is throw a little video together to give anyone who's just finding out about the game, who hasn't played it yet, 5 tips that I think will improve your experience as you try the game for the first time. So I hope you guys find this a useful video. These are some tips from my personal experience playing the game, but also just from discussions with people playing the game since sort of it was revealed late last year. And I think these really do help you get into the game and experience it in a better way than if you were to just pick it up and kind of try it out on your own blind. So without any further ado, we're going to jump into my 5 tips for having a better experience with the Grand Archive trading card game. Let's do it. So we're going to start with tip number 1, which has got to be the most important thing, which is you have to know where to find the cards. And to make this one pretty simple, I'm just providing some links down below in the description. And if you maybe just picked up the demo deck at a convention or something and you don't know where to go from here, these links will give you the ability to access some places where you can get some print and play versions of the game that you can go ahead and print out or take to, you can take it to Office Depot or Office Max or whatever. Just get them printed, Staples, whatever you guys got. Get them all printed for you, and then you can start playing the game with more cards, with elements and everything to them. So those links are down below. I'm just going to explain the few different links we have. One of them is a link to Index, which is the Grand Archive online repository of cards and card knowledge and card information. It's actually a really slick website. And one of the cool features they have built in is the ability to print and play proxies of any of the cards that you want to experience the game before it comes out yet. Definitely recommend checking Index out if you haven't yet, even if you already know about the game, if you just haven't gone there yet or anything, or you were just kind of waiting to see more cards. There are a ton of cards up there from the Grand Archive Prelude set, which is going to be the release that comes with the starter decks and has special Kickstarter stamps on it for the backers. And all those cards are also going to be in the main set when that launches. The other links down there are going to be to the print and play decks, and these are basically just versions of the starter decks that have been sort of in testing since late last year when the game was first revealed and have been iterated on a few times, and these are pretty much the final versions of the starter decks. So if you just go to those links for the print and play decks, again down in the description below, you'll be able to get exact deck lists, so you don't have to sit down and like make a deck when you don't even know how the game works. So if you want to try the game out on a deeper level, take a friend, print off some decks, and start playing. I recommend just playing the Rye versus Lorraine print and play decks, and then head over to Index and just start looking at some of the other cards that you can maybe spice things up with if you want to. So that's tip number 1, where to find some cards. Check the links down below. Now, tip number 2 is to actually know what your deck's plan is. And this is actually, I mean, I guess obviously a really important tip if you've played any trading card games before, but especially in Grand Archive, the 2 decks that you can play, the print and play demo decks or starter decks, are very different from one another. And if you try to play one kind of the way you would play the other, it won't really work very well. The reason for that is that the Lorraine deck, the Wind Lorraine deck, is a very aggressive / mid-range deck. And if you're new to trading card games, that doesn't maybe mean a lot to you, but the idea is you're just going to play your allies and you're going to play weapons and you're going to play attack cards and you're just trying to beat your opponent down turn after turn. The Rye deck, on the other hand, if you try to do that with the Rye deck, it's not going to go very well for you because you're not going to be able to compete with Lorraine on the same level. The Rye deck is more of a sit back, try and control the game. You're going to take some damage, and you're going to be okay with that. You're going to live. You just keep burning away the Lorraine creatures until you can get to level 3, and then you have sort of this big combo storm that you do. And sometimes with that deck, you just one-shot the opponent in one turn once you get to level 3. So every game's going to be a little different. You may have some games where you plink some damage off earlier. You find times to get that damage through. And how you take the opponent out with Rise is going to be different. Or you're going to use your Fireballs, or you're going to use your Arcane Blast. But it's important to look through the deck and kind of know what your win condition is. In the Rye deck especially, you want to be saving those Fireballs and Arcane Blasts to be able to take your opponent out with, if possible. And then in the Lorraine deck, you're more focused on, again, just trying to lay down allies and attack the opponent as much as you can. You want to try not to walk into Rise board sweeping effects, and you want to just try and keep a steady flow of attacks going. Any turn where you're not able to get damage through on the opponent is a turn where they're sort of gaining ground on you. Lorraine wins by finishing Rye off before he can combo, and that's how the 2 starter decks work. So you want to make sure you know that in those print and play decks that we have below, there is a little written page that explains some of that stuff to you. So make sure, I recommend you give that a read before you start playing, just so you kind of have an idea of what your important cards are and what you should be looking to do with each deck. And I think that'll really help your first time play experience go a lot more smoothly. All right, tip number 3, this can be critical. Grand Archive is a game where there is a lot of personal responsibility. Now, I know responsibility is scary. I don't want to scare you, but what I mean by that is that you have a lot of control in the game over how you are spending your resources, and that can affect you in a pretty big way. So you want to just be careful when you are spending your resources on the materialize phase. That's tip number 3, is to be careful with what you materialize and when. Or to put it another way, when a lot of people jump into the game, the first thing they want to do is level all the way straight to level 3 right away. You start in level 0, you want to go, okay, level 1 on turn 1, level 2 on turn 2, level 3 on turn 3. And if you do that, what you'll find is that you will run out of cards pretty quickly. And if your opponent's going a little bit more slowly than you, they may be generating a bigger board because they have more cards to work with and have more stuff to do. And you are going to have trouble keeping up once you get there, unless you have just like the absolute perfect advanced element cards for your level 3. I highly recommend when you're playing the game that you try leveling at a different pace. Maybe play a couple different games with your opponent. Play one, go ahead and try and level faster in one, but realize that the cost of leveling faster is that you tend to lower the amount of resources you have available. And then try leveling slower in the next game. Maybe, if you're not going to die to anything, you don't have to get off level 0 right away or level 1. You can wait a little bit and materialize things that will allow you to draw cards and sort of generate a little bit more advantage that way, and then level later. So I would suggest messing with different paces of how you level and try materializing different things in a different sequence and see how that affects things. There's a lot of play in Grand Archive where you can try and find different ways to eke out advantage at different times of the game. So I recommend just playing around with it. And if you just level straight to 3 and then you're run out of cards and you have a bad experience because of that, just realize that there are some options there that can be a little different, and maybe give the game another try and explore doing things a little differently in your materialize phase. So that's tip number 3. Be careful with what you materialize. Okay, now tip number 4 is one that got me a lot of times when I first started playing. I had to be really careful when I was reading these cards because you need to watch out for class bonus and level requirements on your cards. And I especially class bonus was the one that kept getting me, because I would try and play certain cards in the decks while I was still at level 0. And when you're at level 0, you don't have a class yet. You're just this elemental spirit sitting there. So make sure when you're playing your cards in Grand Archive, you are reading them thoroughly and saying, okay, what abilities are tied to being a certain class? Which abilities require me to be a certain level to get them? And just be extra careful when you play those cards to make sure you're not doing something wrong and causing kind of the whole game to get an asterisk and be a little wonky because of that. Some cards are going to be quite a bit stronger if you're able to play them at lower levels, and that can actually cascade and kind of have a worse experience for your opponent if they're also just new and not really thinking about that. So tip number 4 is a pretty easy one, but it's just pay attention to your cards and read them thoroughly and make sure you're noting when there is a class bonus effect and when there is a level requirement on your cards so that you and your opponent are getting kind of the most fair and fun experience possible. Okay, and our last tip, tip number 5, is all about your memory. In Grand Archive, the way that we play cards is to spend a reserve cost on the top of the card by taking a number of cards from our hand and putting them face down into our memory. And then on the next turn, that's what you're going to be able to materialize a card from your material deck from, and then you'll take anything left back into your hand. This is a little tricky for people to get right away, but a lot of the time you may not want to actually play everything you can in one turn. There is a lot of nuance to what you play and when, because the cards that you play will cost certain amounts of cards in your memory, and some of those cards, when you're materializing, if you're going to materialize something that has a cost to it, you don't actually want to get rid of yet, or you in particular want to materialize very specific cards. One of the earliest tips that we got from the developers of the game on the Discord when everyone was just first trying it out was to sometimes be a little more patient with your plays so that you can very specifically banish particular cards in the materialize phase. And I think this really comes out when you're playing the Rye deck. The Rye deck, on Rye Stormseer level 3, has an ability that says he gets +1 level for every arcane card in your banishment. And you want to, when you're playing Rye, you want to really try and maximize that benefit, because once you get to level 3, if you have a +4, +5, +6 levels on your level 3, that's going to make your combo turn so much easier to hit, and you're going to be able to do so much more on your turn, and it can mean the difference between being able to get the kill on Lorraine once you get to level 3, or just being short and then losing when she just kind of attacks you back for a whole bunch of damage. So this tip is kind of subtle and kind of tricky to get right, but you want to just think extra hard every time you're playing. You know, how much do I want to play on this turn? What are the odds that I'm going to, if you're playing Rye, what are the odds I'm going to banish an arcane card? Or if you're playing either one, what are the odds that I'm going to banish a card that I actually think I'm really going to need here? And how can I stay in the game while, still play cards, still stay in the game, but not end up risking banishing some really important things? You want to think about that a lot, and that's where a lot of the decision space in Grand Archive comes from. If you're an experienced TCG player who's just checking it out for the first time, I think that's something that'll really intrigue you quite a bit, because it's really fun to try and figure out what those decisions look like, what the right decision looks like, and what all the branches of the decision tree are once you start putting certain cards into your reserve to pay for certain things. But it's definitely something that you can get trapped in right away when you're a new player. So I recommend tip number 5 is to just really think about that, and again, just experiment. Like I said, with leveling and with materializing things, try, just go ahead. If you're going to play a few games, try one where you just put everything on the table, and then try another where you're trying to be a little slower and more reserved and see what happens. There's no cost to trying other than some time, and hopefully you're going to have fun either way. So tip number 5, be really careful with what you put into your reserve so that you can materialize very particularly and not the wrong things. And you know what? Why not? How about a bonus tip number 6? This is just a really quick one, but one of the best things you can do if you're just getting into the game is to join the Discord servers. Grand Archive is a very active game on Discord servers, and that's just kind of the way of I think some of these newer TCGs. So down again in the description below, we have links to 2 different Discord servers. One of them is the official Grand Archive Discord server, where the devs are active and talking to people, and they're running contests and stuff all the time, and there's a big community you can talk to. I recommend you join that one and become a part of it. And then the other link is to the Main Deck Discord server. And our Main Deck Discord server is one that is open to fans of all sorts of TCGs, and we run things like leagues for different games in there. And we have a lot of just discussion and community and have a lot of fun talking about different card games. So if you're a fan of Grand Archive or other card games, you want to join us there, we'd be happy to have you. And of course, you should definitely join the Grand Archive Discord server, the official one, because that's where you're going to get that nice dev communication and the huge community of people who are really focused on Grand Archive. So I hope to see you guys in both of those. We at Main Deck, we spend time in both of them. So hope to see you there. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this short and sweet video. This is one I've actually just been meaning to make for a while, but I just haven't had a chance to sit down and do it. And I thought with these cons starting, this would be the perfect opportunity to get this information out there and help people who are just finding the game. So if you did enjoy this, if you found this useful or helpful at all, I really would appreciate give the video a like and let me know down below what tip you found the most useful or interesting, or what other kinds of content that you're looking for Grand Archive or other trading card games. Go ahead and hit us up in the comments down below. Subscribe if you enjoyed this, like if you enjoyed it, and with that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Keep on gaming. Have a good one.